Pastor Steve in Visalia, California. This is Happy Thoughts today, the long walk out of COVID. So I walked to work this morning. It was mid 60s, absolutely blue sky, perfect weather. I live about a little over a mile from work, and I'll walk home for lunch, probably walk back this afternoon, and then back home again this evening. I've been doing that for 15 years, more or less. There are, of course, times when I have to drive because I have meetings or other stuff, but by and large, I have walked to work and put in somewhere between 2 and 4 miles every working day for the last 15 years here in Visalia. In that time, in the early years, it was really a difficult thing for me in Visalia. I had left a long-term pastorate where I was pretty well known and where we had good success in the ministry of the church. And I came to this church and they didn't know that history. They didn't know me. And it was a time of great difficulty for this congregation. It had been split with a pastor leaving and taking a bunch of them left. And there was lots of scar tissue and difficulty to go around. In those early years, it was crazy for me. I would go to work and not have any idea exactly why God had placed me in this place. I'm not really the placating type of personality. I'm not the sweet, gentle type of person that might have been needed for healing in this church. So I sure made a lot of mistakes, and I was scared and I was unhappy. And every day I would get up and I would walk to the church, and then I would walk home at lunch. And on those walks, I can remember praying and talking to God and mumbling and grumbling and trying my best to sort it all out. I knew when I was walking in those early years that the walk and the prayer, those were the healthiest things that I could be doing, because they used up some of the energy physically, but they also let my emotions and my spiritual self be in contact with God. And very often it was the case that the walk in the morning was full of angst and fear and unhappiness. And no matter how the day went, the walk home in the evening was a walk where there was more hope. I'm blessed now to live in a time in this appointment and in this place where almost all the walks are joyful. God has done a lot in my life in the intervening years, and the church has grown together with me into a new phase of life. In my own life, I have really pursued forgiveness, and I have let go a lot of the past, which is very, very hard work, but really, really is an amazing effect in the quality of living. So this morning when I walked to work, it was a radically different experience. I was just as happy as I could be. It reminded me less of walking in the early years and more of walking when I was in grade school and even junior high, and I would walk to school young and full of life and full of hope. Just an absolutely beautiful day. While I was walking, I walked by a very large high school here in Visalia, a beautiful, beautiful facility that they've built for the students. And it's been empty, like most schools, for over a year now. And today, over the last month or so, there were quite a few cars there, and the occasional student, not all the students are back, but some of the students are back, and the coaches are there, and they've begun football drills and practice. And slowly it is kind of gurgling to life. It's starting to rebound. And the traffic at the big corner that I cross in order to get on the block that the church is located on, I now have to wait. For a long time in COVID, I just at will could walk across because there was no traffic. All around me are signs that things are coming back to life and that we are getting ready to enter the end time of COVID. And so the analogy that I'm drawing today, I hope will be useful to you. When we come out of COVID, I hope that all of us recognize we're not going to go back to the way things were. So some things will snap back and be the way they were, schedules or some of the details of life, but we won't be the same. Just like I'm not the same man who walked with his head down and sometimes tearfully to and from work in those early years. I now really am a radically different person, and I just have a ton more hope and a ton more joy in my life. We're going to come out of COVID different than we were before. my hope is that most of us will have discovered there's a lot more to life than what we were pursuing before COVID shut everything down. I will say I know COVID has been very hard for many people, and I am truly sorry for that. In my case, COVID has been a time of regeneration and a really beautiful and powerful time in my marriage with Marilyn. We've always gotten along very well, but in the last few years, we were so busy that we almost had to schedule appointments to see each other. So COVID was like being able to just dive back into that primary relationship and to really soak it up and enjoy it. And what I know going back is I still will work hard because I'm passionate about what our church does, but I'm not the same guy. I'm no longer working so that whoever they might be, will think well of me or to please some vague notion. I'm working for specific things in the church, and though I will continue to work hard, I'm also never going to put myself into a situation, if I can help it, where I have to schedule time to be with Marilyn. The best part of life for me in COVID really was time spent with her, walks taken with her, the things that we did together, even if we just were at home all day together. And I don't want to go back to the way it was. I don't want to go back to having to catch up because she doesn't know what's happened for the last 2 or 3 days because we've just been strangers passing each other. So as you get ready to walk out of COVID and life normalizes in some ways, I suppose the same thing is true of you, that you're different than you were before. And even if you didn't have a good time in COVID, and again, I know a lot of people didn't, I'll bet you learned some things that were really important. I'll bet you learned what you missed most of all. And I'll bet you learned also what it means for you to be alone with your God and to try to sort through what's going on in your life and what is good, what is right, what should you spend your time doing. Those things are incredibly valuable to us. So my hope is that as we return now in stages to a normalized hustle and bustle of life, back to a little bit of the way that it used to be, that we'll all recognize we're different returning to what once was. And if we've done our work and if we really have pleaded with our God and prayed and stayed open to the possibility that he would work in and through us, we're changed in such a way that even the mundane things that we will return to that we might not have really cared for before, they can be transformed. They can be sources of joy and of hope and of satisfaction in this life. So the message for today on Happy Thoughts is I have a happy idea as we walk out of COVID and back into the busyness of life and back into a way of being that we've let go by and large for the last year. Let's be mindful that we're different, that God has changed us. The experience has made us wiser, and with wisdom should come more joy and more peace and more contentment and more understanding of how we should be spending our time and who we should be giving it to. I plan to love on my church and to be as gracious and giving and caring as possible to the many people in my church whose passion for our ministry and for Christ has kept the organization going. I just can't wait really until I can hug them and let them know how much I love them and how much I appreciate them. I also plan on really redoubling my efforts for the important ministries that drive life change and that give people an opportunity to really break through into a new way of existing, a new way of being amidst the Spirit of Christ and a way of finding their joy and their contentment. So I'm excited that COVID is coming to an end. Like everybody, I am ready for it to be done now. But I do want to share with you the happy thought that, you know what? COVID changed me or gave me an opportunity to be changed. And I like this way of being better than what was going on before COVID. So I intend, as I begin to walk again back and forth, to be in a place where I celebrate, where I embrace joy, and where I spend the days of my life that God has allotted in a way that is just much more in line with his peace and with his grace. And I hope you will too. Love on your friends when you get reunited with people that you work with. If you're a teacher and you go back to students, let them know, wow, I really missed you and I really care a great deal about you. We can come out of COVID in a cohesive, unified, loving way that didn't necessarily exist before COVID, if we'll be wise enough to recognize it. So that's a happy thought for today. Whatever happened to you in COVID, however you changed, whatever realizations you made, whatever fundamental wisdom you gained, and I hope in all those things that you deepened your relationship and your walk with Christ as you prepare now to go into the phase of normalizing again. Be proud. Be assured. Know that God has changed you and worked with you and made you more aware of things that are important and that will enhance the rest of your life. So I can't wait to see you on the walking trail. God bless, and I'll talk to you next week.